came down out of the nation's capital. I think he said something like 2.3 billion dollars. And then he also kind of went into, let's not blow this opportunity, guys. Right? We're never going to get $600 million again and not waste it. Right? Go ahead, Phil.
I like how he took credit for eliminating the deficit, which to me was a direct shot at Lou. And that's a big question I got out of yesterday. I thought it was a very, very, very good speech. That last 5-10 minutes, very forceful. It just made me wonder when he's going to resign from Congress and start his campaign for governor.
Yeah, a lot of talk about that, Phil. Hey, good morning, by the way. Right on. Good morning, Phil. Yeah, Phil Flores is a former Republican Party chair. Not used to seeing him this early in the morning. We have Beauty Camacho, who's been on the after party a bunch of times, and she was most recently in the media as a survivor of domestic violence. So always admire your courage and your insights, Beauty. It's good to have you back.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, guys.
We have Joni Kerr of GCC. She's wearing her environmentalist hat this morning. Asked her on to kind of go through maybe some of the issues relative to the things you deal with, Joni, and maybe kind of parcel out the items that you took interest with during the congressman's speech. Good morning, Joni.
Morning.
Sean,
glad to be here.
Of course, we're so glad. We love your Zoom background, by the way. She's in the Harlem Tunnel right now. Guys, ask permission before you ask her a question. Sean Gubatata, of course, he was the former communications director for Governor Felix Camacho. He did a homeland. He's done a lot of stuff. KUAM, very experienced. Sean, welcome back, and hope you had a great vacay.
Oh, it was very nice. Vacation from the vacation is on her now.
Right on. Let's go ahead and get right into it. Beauty, so I know that you were able to catch the speech, or at least most of it, last night. We'll just start with you. Just generally, what were some of the takeaways, some of the things you liked about the speech, maybe some of the things you didn't? Go ahead. Good morning, Beauty.
Good morning. So like Mr. Flores said earlier, it was beautifully crafted, quite emotional for me as well. I honestly feel like my trigger word there in the speech is when he continued to say generational. And like for me, I whenever I hear generational, I feel pain and I also feel healing at the same time. So it's a very weird emotional experience for me. And like I said, it's beautifully crafted. The speech is beautifully crafted because we are able to reminisce about what we've all been through and try to as well, kind of imagine what we're going to be going through for the future. And when I actually had to speed up the settings in the speech because I wanted to make sure I caught as much as I could. And even with that, you're still able to garner a lot of the of what you want to say. And I was trying to take notes too on what would be impactful for me. But in general, I wish I knew about it so I could have attended it live or to have had a bit more time to watch the full thing because it was really nice. I'm glad I was able to view it and come on board and talk about it because I'd like to hear everybody else's opinions as well as their ideas that they have based on what he's mentioned.
Right on. Let's go over to Joni. Go ahead.
Yeah, I caught part of it on the way back from Coco's Island. But then I watched it later on after you notified me about it, about looking at it. So I echo Beauty's words that it was well crafted, well written. But when you look at all the things that he covered, and there was a lot covered, then come the questions about how is Guam going to be able to actually do these things sustainably and also realistically. So one of the things that I thought about, he mentioned having a slaughterhouse or an abattoir. And so I'm a vegan now, or, mostly vegan. And so I'm just going in that way, toward that realm of sustainability myself. But I realize that realistically, people do still meat is still popular, but how are we going to get that land from the military when the military is really, pushing its game on China? It's loath to give up more land. In fact, they took back, or at least in my eyes, they started fencing things years ago where people used to, like Andy South, where people used to run and exercise. I think the governor was trying to get some land back for the hospital, but the options given were not really suitable. So I'm just wondering, given the let's say the dearth of land available and the type of land you would need to have grazing done, first of all, which is very resource. It's a heavy resource kind of industry.
Yeah, Joni,
it uses lots
whole,
of water, lots of land.
Right,
yeah.
Right. That whole part
anyway,
of the
I'm
speech.
just wondering. Yeah.
It's just like, huh? Grazing, slaughterhouse, where'd this come from?
Yeah, that's a lot of ask for $600 million, to go in that direction. The other thing a plus side was that he did talk about transportation, public transportation.
Yeah.
And I think that's more in line of where we want to go, because, we have far too many cars on the road, far too many. And also we have that part of the population that would really benefit from having, buses picking them up on time, getting to school, getting to work on time. I would use public transportation if it was dependable and, save me time as well,
right.
But, and fuel. So I think that would be a plus for using that $600 million. The other thing might be maybe using some of it to supplement private homeowners who want to put in solar voltaics on their houses, just like they did in Hawaii. So maybe, he's correct in saying that the government should try to use this wisely, not screw it up.
Yeah.
And but take a look at the possibilities for moving us in the direction of where we don't have to use so much fossil fuel.
Yeah, interesting points, Joni. You're right. When he talked about the fleet, I mean, this is already underway with the federal funds. We had Selva Bauta on here, and it really looks like we're going to see these massive upgrades to public transportation. I'm all in on it. I agree, Joni. I think that we're so far behind with public transit. That was great, but it was kind of at odds with the whole slaughterhouse. You're right. I mean, I was just like, that was kind of a weird one. But anyway, Sean, let's get to you. Your thoughts initially on the speech?
Yeah, Chris, good morning, everyone. Just a couple of things for me as a guy who's been around the block in terms of writing those kinds of speeches. I think, and I kept an open mind going into listening to it yesterday, but I think his speech was over after the 12th minute. I mean, he spent the first 12 minutes talking about his work, and then the balance of 40 minutes was a combination of the Democratic talking points and then kind of chastising the executive branch of the government of Guam for their work. If you look at all of the stuff that he was talking about transportation, about all these other parts of the executive that he was going through the final half hour, it was like taking the grant writer's work from GURA, from Guam Housing, from the Mass Transit Authority, from the Department of Ag, and then shoved all the narratives into his speech to take absolute credit for the work that is not being done by him, but in fact, by the rest of the Congress. Now, remember, him being on the Financial Services Committee, the first 12 minutes made some sense. But right now, the Financial Services Committee is more worried about trying to ensure there's artificial intelligence in banking. They're trying to get some diversity across the panel on their committee, and also a digital assets working group. That's where his committee is at. And then his talk about the National Defense Authorization Act, which, by the way, he is not a member of the Armed Services Committee, to say, okay, I want to see assets for air. I want to see if we can get more missile defense. He comes at it from such a different perspective because he's not active in that daily as our previous delegates had been. So again, I kept a fairly open mind, but I really, his final half hour in kind of criticizing the executive branch, as Phil said earlier, yeah, you might as well ditch what you're doing now and start running for governor, because at this point, that's where that speech was headed for the course of 52 minutes yesterday.
Right. And let's go back to you, Phil. I wanted to kind of touch on a theme that you guys all really touched on was the chastisement, if you will, of the executive branch, right? And, I'm kind of torn on this because, I mean, don't we want our congressman, whoever it is, to pay attention to what is going on locally? I mean, it would be almost bizarre if they weren't in touch with local issues. And he has a gift of, I mean, well, and he's also very lucky because he's kind of above everything that's happening locally. And I don't mean that in a, he's above us or whatever, but I just mean he can look at the whole field and he can kind of pick and choose and make these comments. And I mean, it's easy to do because, our governor doesn't really come out here and defend her actions very often. So he had a quote in here. He warned, there will not be another $600 million in the future. There's no more EITC or Medicaid gap to fill. We will not see a similar confluence of circumstances that will bring our credit ratings up and increase our debt ceiling capacity like we have today, which means the people in this room, to include myself, if we screw this up, we screw it up permanently.
Yeah, in that point, he's talking like a team, but Sean's right. You spend a lot of that time, not so much criticizing, just saying how I could do it better on the local scene. And we have not had a lot of Congress people before, whether it be Marpimo Robert or Mandel or even Ben Blas, talk so much about the local scene as he did yesterday. And which said to me again, he's running, he wants to run for governor because that's the case he was making. And, going back earlier, he said, don't think about the next election, something along the lines. Don't think about the next election, think about the next generation. For me, that's like the opening of the party for the party shot for the election. I'd be surprised if he doesn't run. And he's got issues in D.C. We don't know where the ethics charges are going. Hopefully they're going nowhere. But if they are going somewhere, he wants to get out of there. And I don't know who picked the fight with whom. Did Lou pick the fight with him, or did he pick the fight with Lou?
I lost track.
They're in, they're like but they're in the 7th round of a 12-round championship, right? Yeah. So we'll see what he goes. But overall, I thought it was a good speech. The slaughterhouse thing got me too, because we've been talking about that for generations.
Yeah, they're doing it in Tinian. Like Tinian is actually using some of their ARP funds to, step up their slaughterhouse game. So maybe he saw that and he was like, oh yeah, CNMI? Huh. That Tinian beef, that's tough.
Yeah, even the slaughterhouse.
If you remember, the J&G used to be, the J&G was raising cattle in Tinian. Yeah. We used to be able to go to Payless and buy milk from it. Yeah. It's not an easy thing. You go all the way back to the Martinez family 2 generations ago. Ken Martinez, he was raising cattle here on Guam. Couldn't do it because it's very difficult because of our climate and the food. You can't feed them tang and tang, and so I'm not sure what they're going to be grazing on. But that aside, I thought it was a very positive speech. Of course, he was praised for all the Democrat Party chair people, which is natural because he's a Democrat. I like the fact how he weaved in encouragement for the private sector, because we don't see that out of very many politicians. Yeah. It's all Guam workers. He saluted the Armed Forces Committee of the Chamber. He talked about the private sector. I just kind of like that, being a member of the private sector.
Yeah.
And because we're the ones who pay most of those taxes. But overall, it was a good speech.
Yeah, and I think it's...
And I voted for Will, and during the runoff, I voted for my friend. I didn't vote for him. But I got to tell you...
Hey, don't try and qualify. I mean, your praise of Michael San Nicolas. I know a lot of people are watching this like, Phil Flores, what did he smoke this morning? Sounds like he's all in with MSN.
I'm on my 58th cup of coffee, so I'm okay.
Well, that was almost a Juan Carlos moment of hugging. So
I know,
at least we can go with there. But I just want to say one thing about the whole slaughterhouse thing was that was a second term initiative of former Governor Gutierrez in his second term. So how funny 21 years later that this became part of a policy speech. And I think that's one thing we got to remember. It was a policy speech relative to his effort. And I think sometimes we kind of forget that as myself and the other 62 people that were watching on YouTube yesterday were trying to get across that again, it's about what his effort in Washington, D.C. would result for the people of Guam yesterday in that case.
I want to take this next one to Beauty because a lot of people talk about the next election, right? And I mean, I've seen on social media pictures of San Nicolas and Moylan, and when you kind of look at the lay of the land and you hear some of the names that are being thrown out, none of them really carry that weight that Michael San Nicolas name carries. And you guys know I'm like his biggest critic, but I tell people, like, if there's anybody who can beat Lou, it's Mike. And I think he could do it. And I think it's generational, Beauty, like you had said. I really don't get it because I really feel like when you look beyond the surface messaging, there are just so many questions with the ethics charge and stuff. But I do understand that the guy is this generation's, I mean, Ricky Berdalio. I mean, he's this generation's Carl Gutierrez. He's that guy 100%. That being said, Beauty, when you talk about, when Phil talks about an ad lib run, there was some, and there has been, he's always kind of postured and been critical of the local government. I mean, sometimes even adversarial almost in what he says and what he's willing to do with the federal government over the local government. So, I mean, I guess that being said, Beauty, do you think he's going to run for governor? And if so, what do you think of it? Would you support him and all that?
I actually do. I feel that, just like as Sean has said, as a grant writer myself, it does sound very grant written. There's just a lot of plug and play into it. But I do feel like he'll be a strong contender if he does decide to do so. But I also feel that he is intentionally crafting his appearances to do so. And like I've mentioned before during the seasons, I personally do not I try not to follow any of the ads or any of the, marketing until a day or two before election time. And then that's when I follow my intuition on, marking my votes, because anything can really happen. And I'm not the type of person to be like, oh yeah, I'm voting for all of these people until the day of. I'm the type of person who says, no, this is who I voted for afterwards. So there's so many things that can happen within the election season that can really just tip the scales, honestly. So that's my view on it.
Joni?
Yeah, I hope my dog doesn't bark, but
we like dogs.
So
Go for it.
I think that he probably is shooting his missiles over the bow toward the next election. I think he wants a spot to land if things go south with the charges in Washington or the investigation in Washington. But one thing I wanted to point out, though, and I'm not sure if this would have been a proper place to bring it up, but he didn't speak anything about political status. He was quite silent on that. And I don't know, Sean, do you think that this is something that he could have mentioned? He might have said, well, this is what I feel is in the works for our future. Besides,
I agree that. I mean, if you think about the Supreme Court that just has been ruling on these different issues, he didn't take a moment to actually spend one of the most important parts of what we've seen policy-wise in the last 6 months relative to that issue. I was a little concerned that he didn't do that. I mean, the videos kind of messed me up too, but you're right. In terms of the actual idea of, this whole idea of our self-determination and the like, it's an opportunity lost for him. I agree with you, Jody.
It's unfortunate. It's an opportunity lost for the whole island when our delegate, I mean, he's come out and pretty much said that he doesn't support self-determination, which is huge because that's our voice in the nation's capital, right? And it's frustrating. Beauty, I know you got to go.
That's really,
sorry, Joni.
Yeah,
we're just gonna,
I think that's really important. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. No. Go ahead. Beauty, I know you got to go, and I wasn't sure if you could actually ninja out of a Zoom, so.
Look, very slowly. Thank you very much, everyone, for having me. And I'm absolutely open to whoever might want to connect to discuss anything further. And wherever you may need my support, I'm here.
Thank you, Beauty.
Thank you.
All right.
Enjoy your day.
Okay. Back to you, Joni. So self-determination. Was there anything else that you found AWOL in the speech?
Well, well, mainly it was a self-determination issue because as part of the Finogi Coalition, we gave him many chances to speak about it and voice his view, his stance, and he never did. He pretty much ignored the Finogi Coalition during the forums when other candidates did not and took advantage of it. So I think it's kind of characteristic of him not to say something about it. And I really feel that's important, that people should really take note of that, because it's, how can you take all this federal money, say it's for the good of the future of the people, but then ignore the actual, the true future, which is political status. Where are we headed? Where are we gonna go? Yeah, like Sean said, he really lost that one. He missed it.
Phil, closing thoughts before we let you go?
Yeah, I mean, I could go on a whole show about political status because I'm not for independence. I think that's ridiculous.
Right, but Phil, I think that's the issue. Is a lot of people just equate political status and self-determination with independence when there's two other options out there. Like San Nicolas could totally hitch his wagon to the statehood. I mean,
no, I'm sorry. There are three other options out there, and I wasn't doing it to beat up independence. I was doing it. I mean, I agree. It would have been good for him to address it yesterday. He has taken some stances on it, but this yesterday was his limelight. Even if Sean says there's only 21 people looking at it or whatever it was. In fact, I asked Chris.
61.
Chris said, Chris asked me yesterday, 9:30 or 7. I said 7. Then I came back later and said, oh, 9:30. He goes, no, we got to do 7. I said, oh man, now I got to watch it. So I watched it yesterday afternoon. And but I'm not quite sure where Mike's going. But it is generational. I mean, he wiped the floor with Madeline, which really surprised me, and also with not so much Will, but with Primo Robert, and he's a rising star. Is he going to run for governor in 2 years? I don't know. If I was I'm making more money living in D.C. Of course, I got to rent an apartment, all that. But I don't have to go to the Daily Bugaboo looking what they say about me on KUM or the Daily News or the Daily Post. But he's ambitious. And, I mean, if you're going to take on Madeline, who's not a politician, she was a brand, and then actually beat her and then take on Robert and beat him twice in the same cycle, and he's ambitious. And I'm not saying he's Superman, but he's certainly Superboy at this point. And who knows where he's going to go. And you got to kind of like his style. He's independent. He will not say, I'm going to do whatever the Democrats tell me to do. But then he's doing nothing but praising Democrat chairs yesterday. I don't know. I think he's got a future. And again, I don't know if it's in 2 years or if it's in 6 years. But he wants to run for governor. There's no doubt about that in my mind.
Well, let me ask, do you think that the ambition to run for governor is genuine, or is it just that that's probably the only way he could get out of this ethics situation, is by resigning?
Well, that's an interesting question. I mean, I don't know. If there's an investigation going on, he knows about it because people are asking questions, and he's going to hear about people asking questions. But I can't say how real it is. I saw yesterday when he recognized his wife, he recognized his children, he was still reading off the script. You should be able to do that without a script. But he wanted to get that in there. For whatever reason, he thought that was important, probably because it is important. I don't know where the investigation is going. I don't know if one leaves Congress, if the investigation then dies.
Yeah, it dies.
It does stop. Okay. But someone said, I think we'll know by the end of the year what he's doing. I got 2 more days left in June, halfway through the year. My gosh, I think we'll know pretty soon. But if you ask me, he wants to run for governor, and it's been said before that he's wanted to run for governor even when he was a senator.
Joni, your thoughts on
that? On him running for governor?
Does that excite you? Or give you a big headache?
No, not really. I mean, okay, so maybe back to the speech a little. He's got really good speech writers. And so he's got that going for him. He has a great political machine working for him. And I think running on those things, you know, it's probably, yeah, like Beauty said, he's going to give other candidates a run for their money. But I just feel like, I mean, there is a population on Guam. It might be small or whatever, but we do watch him carefully when it comes to his when it comes to his position on political status, and also, well, one more thing I needed to mention: education, because he didn't really touch on that, except for getting students to school on time with public transportation. But I think that really, if he could have stressed that a bit more and maybe talked about how we could use that money for college for people, for training, so that they can, you know, pull themselves up out of, you know, the poverty level.
It's interesting, Joni, that you say those things when, because I pay attention, like he does mention those opportunities, but he only mentions them on his Facebook. And since he doesn't engage with the so-called traditional mainstream media, we don't know how to get that message out. You know what I mean? Because I mean, I check his Facebook, and he has mentioned these different programs with this federal funding, but again, it's not reaching maybe the masses that it could.
You know, one thing on Joni's thing, Chris, is going back to education real fast. I'm sorry, but when you think about he announced that, okay, I got $500 million for education, but he only got $100 million for health. Now, remember, we're in the middle of a pandemic. So when you are talking about how we're trying to stop it from coming into our shores, but you clearly, if the kids aren't healthy, they're not going to school. So again, when we think about policy, when we think about, you know, putting together that speech, you know, looking at it in totality, we're all going to chip away at different parts of it. But when we talk about education specifically, great. But in the middle of a pandemic, you just told all the healthcare people, you're important, but not as important. Maybe that's why financial services was greatly served by other parts of it, because he was not part of the discussion. And he didn't give kudos to Khalili, Chris. I was hoping he was going to give some kudos to Khalili for his help.
Right.
Yeah, Khalili is definitely moving a lot of weight. Guys, I got to run. This sounds like we could go on all day about it, but I think at the end of the day, for the average person, they're fine with the congressman, because we're just drowning in all this federal money, and maybe because they're not too clued in on what the actual process is in getting that money, they believe that the congressman, I mean, well, it also doesn't hurt that he's taking credit for everything, but yeah, they think that he got the money when largely it's by default that we get a certain amount of money because we're under the U.S., guys. So, and that's what I found interesting, guys, before we let you go. I found it interesting that they played this guard promotion video totally randomly, when what I would have liked to have seen is, if you were knocking on doors and securing all this funding, show us that, you know, show us on the floor, show us making amendments, show us, you know, you fighting for Guam, give us the proof in the pudding, you know. I mean, trust.
Show us you voting.
Verify.
How was that?
Yeah. Oh, voting. Yeah, that's a sore spot. All right. On that zinger.
That'd be a novel idea in a video. Yeah. Novel.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So they vote. That's what they do. I got you. Okay. 7:37, guys. Thank you. Thank you, Phil.
Thank you.
Joni, always a pleasure. Sean. Okay, see you guys. Real quick break. We're coming back to Ray Tapasnia of Gura next, right here on The Link. Good morning.
Catch this July Independent.